Good evening and welcome to another Fortean Words.
Right, so in summary, students are absolute scumbags, they're completely amoral, they weren't bullied enough when they're at school, and they've got overinflated sense of self-ego, and because of that we end up with terrorism like the Unabomber and the Tokyo subway sarin attack. Thank you for coming to my lecture, now fuck off. Oh, hang on, I was going to make that last a bit longer. Right, so this morning, I was presented with both the Milgram prisoner experiment, and then there was the Stanford prison experiment, and then there was the John Milgram go on and torture these people. And, oh, are you sure? Yes, I'm a man in a lab coat, we're holding a clipboard, and I'm telling you to turn the dial up on this thing. I'll explain more about these experiments later, or Hemi might. They just doing it, and people say, "Oh, look, this is this shows how people easily acquiesce to authority." No, you fucking dickhead! It doesn't show how people acquiesce to authority. It shows how students who have lived all their life in school, you know, because school is a hierarchical system. It's very authoritarian, and they've gone all their time through school. They're getting they're paying attention and they're learning and they're doing all this stuff, and then they're going to university, and then someone in authority tells them to do it, and what they've learned is that if you obey the authority figures, you might not necessarily get the questions right, but you still get praise and you still get the right attention. And that's what's wrong with our fucking society, is you get these students. So the problem with the Stanford prison experiment is that's what would happen if a prison was run by students. Prisons run in real life are not run by students. They're actually run by, well, they're run by probably Freemasons, and then the actual screws or low-life scumbags who are not really better than the criminals they're guarding. But the fact is, they're not anywhere near as dystopic as the Stanford prison experiment. It's only students that you can get that. And why is this? Well, I came to the conclusion quite rapidly. It's one of those things that sort of that moment of clarity that can happen where you've not really... Because I heard about the Stanford prison experiment like when I was a teenager, and I didn't really give it much thought until I know what students are like. And they're absolute fucking dickheads. But the problem is they've got this idea that, oh, been to university, I've got credentials, a piece of paper that says I am bloody smart. Not got an IQ test to find out their IQ's somewhere between 100 and 115, or in the very rare case you got someone between 115 and 125. And for reference, when I was 11 years old, I did have an IQ test done because the school were like, look, we're going to keep expelling him, but at the same time, he's taught himself maths and algebra way beyond anything that a primary school student should know. And it's like, yes, he's got an IQ 137, and the reason he keeps getting into fights and breaking things is because he's bored, which actually I agree with. I was an absolute fucking shitbag at school. And it's very difficult to really respect anybody in authority when they're dumber than you are. No, that's not true. There are people I know that are dumber than me, but I've still learnt from them. So it's not that. Anyway, focus back on my point. Students are scumbags, right? And because they're dickheads that think they're intellectually superior to other people when they're not, and I'm here to actually, do the intellectual equivalent of giving them a dead leg, that they end up thinking they're morally superior to everyone else. It's like, oh, look, I'm at university, I've got my master's degree, therefore I know what's better for people than they do. I know what's best. And you end up with these horrible experiments. If you want to see I mean, Hemi's going to go and list examples of like really fucked up things researchers have done because they've got a lab coat on and people just let them do it for some reason. But if you want to see a society which is run by scientific principles and, you know, the student body is the moral authority of the land, where intellectual progress is seen as the highest virtue, just look to China. That's a society run by students. That's a society run by the best and the brightest. Now, you could say, haven't we got that problem here as well? Yes, we have, because in one of the examples, which I would like to mention, it's not in Hemi's list of things to talk about. There was a social experiment done. It wasn't done in universities. It was done everywhere around the world, and it was this social experiment done in the years 2020 to, in some places, still going on now in 2022. But in the UK, or at least in England, most of the social experiment ended in early 2022, and I think some of you can already infer what that social experiment is, but it included such measures as we were pretending that there was this infectious disease, and if you entered, say for example, a restaurant, and you're standing up, right? If you enter this restaurant without wearing a cloth covering on your face, you're going to get this disease and you're going to die. So you put the cloth covering on your face, which will prevent all known diseases from entering via the respiratory system. But as soon as you sit down, it's okay to remove the face covering because the disease only occupies an area between 5 and 7 foot high. It doesn't occupy the seating areas where diners are eating. Likewise, it's so fucking bullshit. It's complete bollocks. I hate it. And this is the problem with this. They do social experiments on people, and it's just absolutely fucking infuriating. And two famous examples of that are the Stanford Prison Experiment and the Milgram Experiment. Now, I can't remember what the Stanford Prison Experiment was about. I think some students were elected to be prisoners and some were elected to be guards, and the ones that elected to be guards were like, yeah, let's torture the prisoners because, LOL, we're morally superior. But the Milgram Experiment was...
Didn't they switch? Didn't they switch halfway through or something?
Oh, that would be funny. I don't know. But in the Milgram Experiment, you've got these actors, and they are pretending to receive electric shocks. And the participant, the subject was the one being told to administer the electric shocks, and was told, if you go above this level, the shocks will be lethal. So they keep administering increasing electric shocks to the actor, and many of them, not all, but many of them, would go above the lethal amount because a bloke in a white lab coat holding a clipboard said, proceed with the experiment. Not, go ahead and electrocute that fucker, he had it coming, just proceed with the experiment. Now, if I was told, proceed with the experiment, I'd go, well, all right, if I do that, I'm going to result in the death of a man. That's it. I'm not going to do it. That's it. I've done the experiment. The experiment's been proceeded with. I've said I'm not shocking them anymore. If it was, I'm not going to give an example. I mean, some say, yeah, but what if Ben Shapiro was the actor on the other side? It's like, yeah, but it's fake. You're not actually giving electric shocks to the actor on the other side. So all you're doing is they're pretending to get shocked. So it doesn't work.
Well, this is a bit like the 2020 to current day experiment, wasn't it?
Did you not remember me saying that?
Because people now think they have the moral authority to call for the ruination of anybody who didn't have a theoretical inoculation for a theoretical disease.
I will tell you a bit more about the mystery serum and all the fun social experiments which we all participate. We basically did our own Stanford prison experiment. But here's the thing, right? If you want an accurate representation, because they're saying, oh, this is how terribly immoral people are. No, this is showing how terribly immoral students are. They're fucking scumbags. They belong to Scumbag University. And frankly, there should be someone going to
the people who were the people that were telling you what to do during the theoretical current day experiment were all educated. I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse. And then we had to venerate the nurse class, didn't we?
What, the ones who are like, please, I'm dying of thirst and I can't get out of bed. Can I have some water, please? It's like, no, I'm busy making another TikTok video. Fuck you. But now, here's my summary. If you want an accurate representation of what people will and will not do in circumstances where they'd rather not be there, you occasionally have this thing, and it's called a war. And in the war, you see, it's illegal to murder people. And if you do, the state will murder you in some places. It's called the death penalty. You get executed. Now, it's illegal to murder people unless it's a war. But even then, it can still be illegal to murder people because, well, if you really enjoyed it, or you start raping them before, or you pillage their body, then you can still get executed for it. But anyway, in war, it's legal to murder people, and if the war's going really bad, then you get conscripted because it's like, okay, look, the actual volunteer professional army are dead. Or they're dying. We need to rank up the numbers. So any man, I should say, that can stand on two legs and hold a gun, your rifle, you are now conscripted. And it's been found that the problem with telling people that don't really want to go to war, here's a gun, and they're fighting other people that don't really want to fight, and here's a gun, is rather than aiming at the enemy, they just aim over their heads and hope that, well, if I make enough of a noise, hopefully they'll run away and, I'll get to live another day and they'll get to live another day because I haven't really got any qualms against these people. I just want to get it over and done with. So a conscripted army is a far better representation of what your typical male's like because they're not students. Some of them will be students. Others of them will be, street sweepers, barmen, shelf stackers, lorry drivers. They will be people of all abilities and all IQ ranges. And you'll find in those people, they have compassion. They're not like, the CO told me to shoot that guy in the head, therefore I better do it, because... But maybe that's the thing. What if the commanding officers were given a white lab coat and instead of having like a pistol, they gave them a clipboard? And when they say like, I don't want to put the bayonet in this man's testicles, and then the CO just says, proceed with the experiment. Maybe that's how you end up with Guantanamo. By the way, I would like to preface all this stuff with... I have the chinky pox. I've had it since probably Sunday, and I am trying my best not to cough. It feels like I've been kicked in the ribs, and I'm dizzy, and I've just been reminded of what amoral fatwit students are. Now, it's not to say all students are fatwits. I mean, some of them.
Quite a lot of them are amoral, though.
Oh yeah, I mean that's why they'll lick your anus whilst letting you fuck them, and they wear goth makeup and they're quite pretty in a way, sort of. It's like eating a dirty kebab at 3 a.m. when you're drunk. You know you shouldn't, but it feels good. Just, I hope people can understand. What I'm saying is, not all students are irredeemable trash, but the vast majority of them are. And the university system is just a training ground of evil, and I can't stand it. And universities are responsible.
I don't think they're even evil. I think they're just, like you say,
they are.
They're amoral. They're amoral. They have no moral compass, do they?
All right. Well, here's the thing, right? So, is this evil or amoral? I've got some beagles, and I'm going to stick their head into a tent and have them bitten to death by sand fleas. Because science. I've got a clipboard, and I'm going to time how long it takes them to die.
Yeah, but he's got a clipboard. That means he can do that.
Oh, well, that's all right then. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a clipboard that, but he's like, I've got a clipboard that absolves me of any guilt for what I'm doing.
So, but if, instead of being clipboard, if he wore Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses and was having a wank whilst they were dying in pain, that would be evil.
Yeah, exactly.
So the difference is, if you're not getting your jollies from it, then it's amoral.
Well, you still can get your jollies from it, but just don't overtly get your jollies from it. There's an amount of getting your jollies from it that is acceptable.
So what if I, after I've been torturing some beagles, decide to go to bathhouses to see how diseases spread amongst promiscuous homosexual men?
Have you got a clipboard? Are you taking notes?
I'm not sure if they allow them in bathhouses.
That's the flow chart for it.
Yeah. So I briefly came across this, but in fact we did talk about this in pre-production, because we're very professional, so we do pre-production stuff, what we're going to do, flesh out our shows. And I came across the point, actually I might not have even done this with you, Hemi, I might have just been talking out loud with myself earlier today. I said, well look, yeah, we also had this problem with intellect without the wisdom to guide it. I mean, the David Icke would say knowledge is the knowledge to build a nuclear bomb, and wisdom is the wisdom not to use it. Whereas,
the more sensible version of that is knowledge is knowing tomatoes are fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
There you go. Thank you for coming to my TED talk. But we used to have some guiding principles for these intellectual fuckwits. No, that's probably not the right term for them. Yeah, I'm going to call them intellectual fuckwits because they're fucking around with their intellects and doing some quite evil things with it. So you would instill some sort of religious virtue into them, and prior to universities being established, you'd have your monastic orders, and occasionally you get dickheads come through, I don't know if he was a monk, but Thomas Malthus, very popular priest. When someone talks about Malthusian policies, one of the things Malthus was like, well, poor people aren't very nice, so what you should do is you should put them in high-density residential buildings with poor hygiene, so when the diseases do spread, they'll spread rapidly and kill off a lot of the poor people. And for whatever reason, the aristocracy seemed to take it hook, line, and sinker, and just like, oh yeah, this is very sensible, I approve this, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why the aristocracy would say Thomas Malthus wasn't just a fucking dickhead, but there you have it.
But again,
that's the aristocracy.
Day, weren't they?
Well, yeah, and so this is the thing. If Thomas Malthus went to a monastery, the abbot or the mother superior, in the case of nuns, would be like, look, you're fucking evil. But God loves you, so we're going to put you in a cell. You're going to spend 7 days there, bread and water, by yourself, and give you, time to think on Jesus' infinite love and why you shouldn't be advocating for people to live in abject misery and filth. And then you come back again. And that's the thing, is I would like to think there was a time in universities prior to the Enlightenment where it was understood that, look, your genius, or in the case of midwits with 110 IQ, your above average IQ is a gift from God. And you need to use it to better human society. Not do Ted Kaczynski and go, oh, I'm dissatisfied with society somewhat. Here's a highly eloquent thing, which his manifesto is actually quite salient. But his typical solution, which is where these intellectual fuckwits just are really short-sighted,
Malthus had a brother called Ralph Malthus.
I don't get it.
That's a happy fucking hell, Dom. That's a what's the TV series with the Fonz in it? That's a Ralph Malph was in that, I think.
Happy Days.
Yeah, I think.
I
think Ralph Malph was in Happy Days.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah, but anyway, Ted Kaczynski's brilliant 168 IQ solution to the problems he correctly identified in society was, LOL, I'm just going to start bombing random news centres and newspaper outlets. And I don't know who all of his victims were, but he seemed to dislike journalists, which, again, is a sympathetic target, but it's not going to change society. It's not going to make people go, oh, you know what? I'm going to start going to church. I'm going to stop using plastics, and I'm going to overthrow the government and put all these politicians in prison, or once they've been tried by a jury of their peers, hung, drawn, and quartered. It didn't result in that. Ted Kaczynski did it. And likewise, Greta Thunberg, who's now going, yes, I will be the new champion for you, Ted Kaczynski. It's not going to bloody work.
Are you saying Greta Thunberg and Ralph Ted Kaczynski the same but different?
Well, I'm saying that Greta Thunberg is now writing love letters to Ted Kaczynski. And also, can I just say, because I'm looking at the Wikipedia page of it now, if it wasn't for big-brained, intellectually superior fuckwits thinking they're also morally superior, and it's like, well, I'm smarter than average because, look, I've got a university degree, I'm a postgraduate, and I understand microbiology, therefore, I know I'll make some botulinum toxin or sarin gas and release it in the Tokyo metro because I know better than everybody else. It's like, that's how you end up with stuff like this. It's completely fucked. Is like, I can understand wanting to change the world and making it a better place, but killing thousands of random people.
You're going to make me start singing Change the World by Michael Jackson. Heal the world, make it a better place.
Yeah, why not?
For
you know what? I like Michael Jackson.
For you and the entire human race.
I mean, not that I want this episode to be about Michael Jackson, but like, seriously, I could. Well, that's weird. That's not my content. Is that kind of? It doesn't matter. Telegram's just updated me. It's like someone I know's now joined Telegram. That's okay. No, I don't want to turn this episode into Michael Jackson, but like, I like the guy. I reckon he was set up. Seriously. Like, I think he was castrated by his father so that he could.
I don't know. Isn't a lot of it put down to the fact that he was there in bed about 6 and his brothers were fucking getting it on in the bed next door?
Well, I want to say how much of that is just typical black family behaviour, because I mean neither of us know what's going on.
Typical entertainment family behaviour. I mean, you see what our so-called fucking betters are like. They're just absolute pieces of filth, aren't they?
Well, I'm pretty sure, like, when the first accusation came out against him, the Beverly Hills Police Department, they strip searched him, and then the examination. The prosecuting, like the policeman did the arrest said, yeah, there's no way Michael Jackson was physically capable of doing the sexual assault. So, I mean, unless he fingered Macaulay Culkin, then that's about the extent of it. But I reckon they just, well, you know, he was saying stuff about the you-know-whos before Ye West was doing it.
Before it was fashionable.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Before it was fashionable, he did it before it was cool. Yeah.
I think it's quite plausible the dude had a very fucked up childhood, and it kind of.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. The way that the guy had lived his life, it was, there's nothing reasonable about him, but I still like the guy. It's just I find him sympathetic.
The king of pop. Anyway, we were talking about
how completely amoral or evil students are, and fuck them. They're a bunch of scumbags.
Are you still going, or are we ready for some lists?
Well, I'm pretty surprised how I said, oh, look, I'll be able to summarise this all in about 5 minutes. It's actually taken 25.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Oh, yeah, so you want to cue the list music? Oh,
it's still up. I can do it. Hold on.
Did you want to do what the Milgram... Oh, I've done that. What the Stanford prison experiment was.
Is that playing for you or not?
I don't know.
It's not. Still in me folder. Hold on a sec. Oh, I found it. I've got it. It's all right.
Jackson hasn't done any TV work since Celebrity Autopsy. Is that even a thing?
It's a joke.
No, I mean, was there a show called Celebrity Autopsy?
Can you hear that a bit? I've got the music going. And here we are, pop pickers. We're with the most unethical experiments in psychology. What do we got in? In at number one.
So, I'm going to refresh my...
I'm getting sick to fucking death of these fucking... We're back, Hobbit.
Oh, yeah, and that's why it's replaying the video.
Yeah, I've muted it, so it's just going to be replaying the video. Anyway,
I'll
start again with the hysteria.
Oh, yeah, so, but basically the women would go there and... I suppose in some ways you could say it is a moment of hysteria, because some of them get quite vocal about their moment of sexual emergency. And and so the doctors would treat them using vibrators, and that's why the vibrator was invented. And you know what? I've probably copied that from QI, and I could just imagine that smug Danish bitch, whatever her name is, the female Stephen Fry going...
Oh, God, it's Sandy Toxic that does it now, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Sandy Toxic. Well, you know what? She probably hasn't nonced as many boys as Stephen Fry allegedly has, So, but they're just so fucking smug, both of them. You know what? That's why I actually like University Challenge as a show, because these so-called intellectual big brain dorks, when you get them on a show like
it's heavily scripted though, isn't it?
What, QI?
Yeah.
But that's why when you
think of numbers, do you remember number 7? You wouldn't remember number 73. It used to be a Saturday.
No, but the point is, I like University Challenge.
She's got no neck, because that guy used to be the gag about her, didn't it? That she got no.
I like University Challenge because it's quite fun when I go there and it's like I know the answer to this question, and it's like I'm smarter than these fucking students are. Look at these dickheads.
Students aren't very smart.
Well, some of them are. Some genuinely go to university and it's like, look, I want to study X-ray crystallography. In order to do that, I need access to the University of Oxford or Cambridge chemistry department or physics. It's one of those overlapping areas. And they'll actually do something like, I've studied the lattice structure of sapphire, and this is how to make transparent aluminium. They might do something which benefits humanity.
So, are you ready? Are you ready to? So, the next one is Oh, go on. You finished?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, 99% of people that go into university are just fucking dickheads.
So electroshock therapy on children. So Loretta Bender of the Creedmoor Hospital in New York spent much of the 1960s subjecting young children to electroshock therapy.
So, in other words, torturing.
Yeah.
Torturing with electricity.
That's not even the good bit, Hobbit. The good bit is how she chose her patients.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah. She chose her patients through an interview process, Hobbit. Now, if you're going to do an interview process of children who've got schizophrenia, what would you do?
Well, all right. So I need to think. I'm an evil bastard. I'd probably pick the most vulnerable-looking children, the most quiet, the most well-behaved, the ones basically where if you were to abuse them, it would cause the most amount of suffering in the world. That's how I would do it on.
So what she did was she applied a small bit of pressure to a child's head as they sat in front of a large group. Any child who moved with the pressure, asserted Dr. Bender, was showing early signs of schizophrenia.
This is a female doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so she's got like a postgraduate degree from Scumbag University.
Yeah.
Scumbag!
Scumbag!
So when like the parents who are completely absent in these trials are going like, what gives you the?
You're a quack, love. I should hope at least a few did that.
It goes like, oh, well, she is wearing a white lab coat and has got a clipboard. Therefore, just carry on. Carry on with this stuff.
I don't think there are any clipboards.
Sorry, breaking news. Find love on the best dating site. Mumu Ogun Thunderstrike you. I'm going to Mumu Ogun Thunderstrike you right now. If the moderators haven't already it.
Ask her if she wants your Bobo phone.
Oh yeah. They don't actually respond to messages, so yeah, I'll just.
Do you want my Bobo phone?
Oh, speaking of Mumu Ogon Thunderstrike you, I had someone on Telegram message me, and it was a female avatar and a name like Helen Miller or something, and so I said Mumu Ogon Thunderstrike you, and I actually got a response. It was. Now, Mumu Ogun Thunderstrike to me doesn't sound particularly rude, but it really it's like I told them to fuck your mother or something. It's let's see if I can find what the response was.
Speaking of fucking your mother, Hobbit, Operation Midnight Climax. Our old friends at the CIA. In the
the CIA, man, you know what? Whenever I think. Is there a way to make the world a better place? The CIA always there with we're working
just
hard.
Asking questions, Hobbit. They were just asking questions.
So
the curious minds inquire.
So, but before you get into the Operation CIA making the world, but basically CIA is Tukum Olam, the organisation. So I said to this scammer, Mumu Ogun Thunderstrike you. Why you day swear you go just say you beat hustler sense, bro? Does that make sense? Apparently.
So Hobbit, in the 1950s, bear this in mind for the end of the paragraph. In the 1950s, the CIA, who just want to make the world a better place, just like Michael Jackson, did a secret mind control. Why are the CIA obsessed with mind control? That's what I'd like to know. It dubbed Operation Midnight Climax. The purpose of the operation was to study the effects of LSD on people, and so non-consenting individuals in San Francisco and New York were lured by CIA-paid prostitutes to safe houses where they were slipped mind-altering substances like LSD, then monitored from behind one-way glass. I wonder how many spunk stains are on the CIA side of the glass.
So, was this here have some complimentary LSD with
No, it was more like does this smell like this smell like LSD to you? I think it was more like that, Hobbit.
Yes.
I think it was more like, here, do you want a drink? Here's a Coca-Cola. Yeah, I think that's more what it was like. I don't think it was anything like, here, do you want some LSD?
Yeah, because I mean, people wouldn't even know what LSD was back then. It was just like,
Yeah. But even so, they weren't telling them that yeah, they were slipped. Slipped is the word used, which means they didn't know they were taking LSD. Operation Midnight Climax provided the government with extensive knowledge on topics such as mind-altering drugs, surveillance technology, and even sexual blackmail. Fortunately for those unwitting test subjects, Operation Midnight Climax was shut down in... So this started in the 50s, Hobbit. Have a guess when it was shut down.
1985.
65. 10 to 15 years they were doing this.
Oh, well, that's very reasonable, and it's your tax dollars at work.
Yeah.
Why are you going to complain about this? Do you want the communists to win? Because not using your tax money to give drugs to prostitutes to slip-time witting Johns, that's how communists win.
Yeah.
If you don't have some men in dark suits with sunglasses behind one-way mirrors with clipboards
and their
observing you tripping whilst you're trying to shag some bin, then I know if you've got the cock out, it's evil. We established this with Jeffrey Dahmer. If Jeffrey Dahmer just had a clipboard and white lab coat, he'd have got away with it.
Says CIA clowns in America. If only they were funny. If only. So here you go. Here's a couple. Here's a heartwarming couple, Hobbit. In 1939, 22 orphans living in Davenport, Iowa, became the test subjects of Wendell Johnson and Mary Tudor. This fun-loving couple are researchers from the University of Iowa. So obviously they had a clipboard with them. So this is fine. Whatever they're
as long as you've got a clipboard,
they've got a clipboard.
So does this mean if I want to do something absolutely amoral and heinous, as long as I got a white lab coat and a clipboard on, I get away with it?
Exactly.
So if I was to say I had a white lab coat and a clipboard, and I start throwing petrol bombs at expensive cars, in various places, not naming names, Jeremy Clarkson, and then people say, well, that's criminal damage and arson. I'd be like, no, I'm doing research into how fire spreads.
You put yourself in a white lab coat with a clipboard. You're going to do a study about stuttering. How would you carry about a survey? You've got 22 orphans as your test subjects. How are you going to do this thing about stuttering?
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, because I totally don't know what you're about to say, is I'm going to call them shits and give them a slap any time they make any slight thing. Actually, you know what? I'm going to gaslight them and just say they're mispronouncing everything and saying fuck you and you're scum and you'll never be able to talk properly, and stop mumbling even when they're shouting and carefully enunciating all their words, to the point where it's going to cause them to have proper you gaslight them to the point where they have proper psychological neuroses and breakdown and actually develop stuttering for real. Because I'm a scientist in the science place. I'm doing stuff
with a clipboard.
I have this love of wisdom and science. I wish to progress the furthering of human understanding so that the world can be a better place by screwing up these kids.
Exactly. So Hobbit's completely correct. In the end, the children in the second group who spoke normally before the experiment developed speech problems that they reportedly retained for the rest of their lives. Johnson and Tudor never published results of the study out of fear they would be compared to human experimenters among the Nazis.
Well, this is another thing as well. I don't think anybody's going to say we benefited a lot from the research Joseph Mengele did. I don't think people are going to say, well, mistakes were made and now we should just have an amnesty. Problem?
He had an army uniform and he didn't have a clipboard.
That's it. If he just had a white lab coat and a clipboard, it would have been
he'd gone to university, maybe.
I think he had gone to
I
university.
think he would have had to be. But why didn't he say, "Look, I've got credentials. This is fine."
Yeah, but the difference is he lost. He was part of the losing team, so it didn't matter what he did.
Next up, we have our good friends at the CIA again, MK Ultra, which we'll probably do in an episode. So highlights of MK Ultra involve subjecting unknowing Americans to things like mind-altering drugs, sensory deprivation, verbal and sexual abuse, extreme isolation, hypnosis, and other forms of torture.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's the CIA.
I'm sure glad we got the CIA around, just to
protect us. The Central Intelligence, military intelligence. This is military intelligence. This is how. Look. Do you want the commies to win, Hobbit?
No, of course not. Because then we'd all be speaking Russian, and it'd be terrible. I mean, we've got a different alphabet for a start. How are you going to learn that?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want the commies to win. If you don't want the commies to win, just let the CIA do whatever they want.
Well, Alphabet Cat is saying, hey, do you know what the difference between Anthony Fauci and Joseph Mengele is? Well, Anthony Fauci is one of the good guys, and we know that because
White lab coat.
Because fact checkers say so. Yeah, white lab coat, exactly.
Yeah.
He, even when he's not doing an experiment and he goes onto a talk show, he's still wearing a white lab coat, so you know it's all right.
Yeah. So we've got next up, we've got the Aversion Project. During the apartheid era in South Africa, see, they prefaced it by saying how evil it is. We know how evil the rest of it's going to be because it's during apartheid in South Africa. Is it apartheid or apartheid, Hobbit? How do you pronounce it?
I don't care. I really don't.
Army Colonel and psychologist Dr. Aubrey Levine. I mean, I trust him, that name alone. Aubrey Levine sounds like a good bloke. Was put in charge of curing the country's homosexuals. Thousands of homosexuals were imprisoned at the Voortrekker Houtge military hospital.
Just in case Auntie Susan's listening to our show, both Hemmingford and myself...
We've already said it's evil because it's in South Africa.
Yeah, well, I was just wanting to establish that we're both transsexual and therefore, we're transsexual and I, in fact, sexually identify as Susan Wojcicki.
Yeah.
That is my sexual identity. And you can't say that's an invalid identity, because if you do, then you're transphobic, and that's hate crime. So take that, racist bigots.
While there, they were subject to electroconvulsive aversion therapy meant to reorientate them.
So in other words, shock their testicles.
Homosexual men were shown pictures of naked males, then encouraged to fantasize before being subjected to severe shocks. When apartheid finally ended, Levin left South Africa to avoid being named an abuser of human rights. See, it doesn't count if you move countries, Hobbit.
Well, yes, because Stephen Fry, when he was allegedly accused of noncing, he was going to appear in a theatre production on the West End with Rick Mayall. And he actually upstaged it. So Rick Mayall's on the stage by himself. Stephen Fry doesn't show up. And the next thing he's found out is Stephen Fry has literally just got the first available flight to Belgium. And he's staying there for about 6 months until things quieten down. And then he comes back to England, because apparently that's the statute of limitations or something when you've done some impropriety with underage boys. Yeah. Allegedly. You see, I'm a transsexual, so I'm allowed to say that. And
the next one on the list is obviously John Money, and obviously we don't want to be anti-Semitic on here. And
anybody that says it, he was a brilliant crusader for trans rights, and therefore we will not be hearing any criticisms of Dr. John Money.
Yeah. At 7 months old, David Peter Reamer's penis was accidentally maimed during a routine circumcision. Dr. John Money, a psychologist, remember he had a clipboard and a white coat, so it's fine. studying the idea that gender is learned, because obviously you learn that you've got a dick. And you go, oh, look, I've got a dick. I'm a man. Is that how it works, Hobbit? you learn that you're a man?
Yes, because it's a social construct, isn't it?
Yeah. Convinced the Reamer family that their son was now more likely to reach a successful maturation if he sexually reassigned as female. Over the years, Dr. Money continued to report that the reassignment had been nothing but successful, though he apparently failed to consult David. Before he committed suicide at the age of 38, David insisted that he had never identified as female and described a childhood during which he was teased, cruelly ostracised by his peers, and extremely depressed. Just all homophobic, all of those people.
Yeah, it's just he was his identity wasn't invalidated, and therefore he was a victim of transphobic crimes. Sorry, she was a victim of transphobic crimes. You see, even I, who I'd sexually identify
gender someone, Hobbit. That's disgraceful.
Well, that's the thing. Even I, who sexually identify as Susan Wojcicki, get so ingrained with the systemic oppression of our society that I get my terms confused. It's terrible.
Next, we got the Stanford prison experiment, which obviously you went with. So it's 24 male students were randomly assigned the role of guard or prison. You see the problem there? They didn't have any women there, did they, Hobbit?
Again, just to preface, students, not normal people, people that are so
humans,
fit.
Not human students.
Now, this is the thing. I'm not saying Pol Pot was right. Okay, Pol Pot's kind of the opposite of Ted Kaczynski, but after the Stanford prison experiment and also the 2020 to 2022 social experiment, I'm saying I kind of understand where Pol Pot's coming from. I don't agree with the solution to the problem. I think the solution was wrong. But again, another thing, these are students, they're not normal people. Students are so stupid that after doing compulsory education and going like, you know what, I think I'm going to go and do some more of that. I'm going to go back into education now I've done my compulsory education. And the dumbest of them all become teachers because they're like, well, I've done all my compulsory education, now I'm going to spend a lifetime doing the same to others.
As Holly on Red Dwarf said, 2000 isn't a big IQ. It's about the same as 2000 PE teachers.
Well, they say those that can't do teach, and those that can't teach PE.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a shame, actually, because one of the PE teachers in my school was a fairly reasonable teacher. I actually I respected her. So that was an example of like someone who is thick, but at the same time is still a good teacher. You don't need to be a genius to teach people. In fact, one of the worst teachers I had was actually a genius. She was a brilliant chemist, and if I had questions about stuff like chelation or SOx extractions of nutmeg oils and such, not because I wanted to get high, because Soxlet extractions was part of chemistry and nutmeg was used as like, here's something you can extract using cyclohexane. But she was a crap teacher. She really did not know how to like convey that this is the chemistry and this is what you need to learn. But in terms of like, so can you tell me like how chelation works? She would do that stuff, and it didn't come up in the syllabus, by the way. It was just like, I had water filters at the time and had these aluminium chelation agents. So I said, well, look, it's not ionically reacting with fluoride in the water. It can't. She says, no, it's not a chemical reaction. It's a physical reaction where it kind of, the fluorine atoms in this case will kind of just nestle in between the aluminium atoms. And whilst they're not combining to form molecules, they kind of just stay there in suspension. So yeah,
that's right. Hobbit.
Oh,
Hobbit.
Ian says
you're working at. Oh, go on then.
He says PE teachers tend to be pedos. Now, I don't want to dox myself for the school I went to, but one of the PE teachers, a netball instructor, And there was rumours that one of the netball enthusiasts liked the netball instructor. And then when this netball enthusiast came of age, the PE teacher quit the job and they moved away from the school into a flat together and are pursuing a loving relationship of domestic abuse with battering one another. Because that's what lesbians get up to.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I
Hobbit,
know.
you work at my lab. Hobbit, I've got an experiment for you. I want some experiments on drug trials. What are you going to do?
Oh, I know. Have I got a load of spare monkeys lying around?
Yes, you can have the monkeys. They're spare.
Fuck it. I'll just inject all these drugs into the monkeys and see what happens. I've got a
Hobbit,
clipboard and a white lab
that
coat.
experiment's a bit route one. What I really need you to do is I need you to get the animals to do it themselves.
So I'm going to train monkeys into becoming crack addicts. Hang on. Isn't this what done by the CIA in the 90s?
Well, all it says here is 1969 in a research facility.
It almost feels like an Ian and Dom episode with this back and forth. I don't like it. I need to go back into just monologues and then you say, hey, Hobbit, did you know about this?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the format of the show. We can't do Dom and Ian's thing.
So anyway, your experiment, Hobbit, ends with monkeys being extremely crazed. Some attempted to escape, broke limbs in the process. Others tore all the fur from different parts of their bodies. Some mixed various drugs and were dead within a few weeks. Well done, Hobbit. Successful experiment. Now we know about drugs.
And we also know how much drugs to give to monkeys.
Yeah.
Is the answer as much as you can?
Yeah.
Or is there is there a cost benefit analysis?
Because some sort of point to this. Is that what you're saying, Hobbit?
Well, I'm thinking because they're universities and therefore have unlimited budgets, and they can just give them as many drugs as they want. Because in another place, you'd be like, it's obviously funny to give drugs to monkeys, and that's why you do it. But you got to find a cost benefit analysis. What's the most cost effective drugs I can give to monkeys to give the most amount of hilarity? What if I give them a little bit of PCP as a treat, or will that just result in too many murders?
How about flood their housing estates with crack? No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Oh no! Look at that. Someone's. Hobbit, you're spoiling my fun there.
I've Mumu Ogun Thunderstriked you.
Girls 18 online.
Yeah.
Right. So what?
Well, are they telling me there's 18? That's to tell me that there's 18 girls online. There should be only one online at a time.
You're a girl in my local area. What are you doing up at 3 o'clock in the morning? That was a great bit of stand-up from Andrew Lawrence. That was.
Yeah.
You know the late night adverts. I'm a local girl in your area. He rang her up and he said, "You a local girl in my area?" Well, yes. Well, I'll ring you in the morning. What are you doing up at this time of night?
My favourite was the bloke who used to ring up Babe Station and talk about the cricket results.
Oh dear. So Hobbit, I've got a new experiment for you. People's facial experiments. I want to have a look at people's facial experiments. What? Oh. I need you to do some experiments with people. What are you going to do?
I'm going to cough in agony is what I'm going to do.
So anyway, this one, 1924, University of Minnesota, psychologist Carney Landis began an experiment to study common facial experiments. To conduct his experiment, Landis recruited a number of student volunteers.
You mean expressions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I say
you said facial experiments.
Oh, right, expressions. Landis recruited a number of student volunteers, then painted the lines of their facial muscles black. So then, just to find out what their different facial expressions were, he showed them pornography, ammonia, touching reptiles, and beheading rats. The latter of which ultimately changed the experiment into something that resembled the Milgram experiment. 1/3 of the participants willingly beheaded the rat when told, despite the fact they did not know how to do such a thing humanely. For those who hesitated upon the direction to kill the rat, Landis decapitated the animal for them.
Right, so there's this thing called Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, and one of the episode titles is called "The Writer's Barely Disguised Fetish." Is this the scientist's barely disguised psychopathy?
I think so, yeah. I think you might be right on that score, Hobbit.
It's basically just like, I'm going to justify my psychopathy by making it... Because that's the thing, psychopaths really do like doing experiments on people, because a lot of what they do is just experimentation.
Well, they're trying to work out... I think what it is I think they're trying to work out human emotion because they don't have any, aren't they?
Yeah.
What do you think to that as a hypothesis then?
Well, I think Facebook is the prime example of a psychopath trying to understand human behaviour. I mean, there's all those memes showing like Mr. Zuckerberg as. By the way, did you know Mark Zuckerberg's not his real name? His name's like Levenstein or something.
Is it?
But then he decided, I'll go with.
Sound less Jewish.
Yeah. Mr. Sugarbags.
I'm gonna get down. I'm gonna get down with the goys.
No, hang on.
Goys won't notice.
Berg isn't bag. It's mountain. So Mr. Sugar Mountain. Yeah, that's
Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf Mountain.
Yeah, it's just all right. Okay, but so yeah, just I mean, Facebook is like it is just like. You know, I wish to understand what it means to be human.
Right, speaking of that, there's a fella called John Watson. Watson is known as the father of behaviouralism. That Watson is a lovely guy, absolutely wonderful. But he's got a clipboard and a clipboard and a white coat, so you know it's not going to end well, especially for a 9-month-old orphan known as Little Albert. At first, Little Albert was exposed to a variety of sights and sounds, including rabbits, monkeys, burning newspaper, and masks of all sorts. In the experiment's second phase, Watson introduced Little Albert to a white rat. As with other things, Little Albert didn't show any fear of the rat. That is until Watson began making loud noises with a steel bar any time that Albert touched the animal. Not surprisingly, the presence of the rat turned distressing. Soon Little Albert expressed
that's like
fear
a Pavlovian experiment.
Yeah. Soon Little Albert expressed fear over anything fluffy and or white, ultimately proving Watson's hypothesis that fear could be conditioned.
Wow. The psychopath's barely disguised fetish.
Yeah. Right, Hobbit. I know you know what a bubble fun is, but have you ever heard of a bubble doll? Have you ever heard of the bubble doll experiment?
No, I have not. Tell me more about this. Bubble doll.
Where is my bubble doll? In yet another 1960s era Stanford experiment, like obviously it's going well, isn't it? Albert Bandura initiated an experiment meant to demonstrate the ways which children learn behaviour. Bandura's experiment consisted of 72 primary-age children and a large inflatable doll named Bubble. Bandura had a percentage of his young test subjects watch an adult violently abuse Bobo, both physically and verbally, then left each child alone in the room with the doll. Perhaps not surprisingly, a large number of the children began to also abuse Bobo, maybe quite violently. Bandura repeated experiments twice and received the same results each time.
So you're telling me you can train kids to be little shits by observing adults being little shits?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you think, like, in certain demographics, the way they end up, like, being violent and doing rapes and drugs and all the stuff might be because of learned... well, it might be from observing the actions of bubble adults on bubble dolls.
On bubble dolls. So who? But this one, Harry Harlow. He invented an experiment called the Pit of Despair, which is wonderful because Harlow collected a group of monkeys ranging in age from 3 months to 3 years old, knowing full well that juvenile monkeys stay with their mothers for longer than most animals. Harlow isolated his young test subjects in small, lonely chambers. Every monkey in Harlow's experiment had already bonded with its mother, and therefore the monkeys soon became extremely depressed. After a short amount of time, these monkeys stopped playing and interacting. 2 of them even starved themselves to death by refusing to eat. Harlow's experiment was widely condemned as cruel and unnecessary. Most agreed the results were common sense. Well, that's the thing with a lot of these things, isn't it?
You say it's common sense, but common sense is not something shared with psychopaths.
Is that all that common?
That's why they do these things.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what will happen, does he?
No.
Because he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
So about 1968, the bystander effect. Have you heard this one, Hobbit?
It sounds familiar, but
no,
go on, tell
1968, so psychologists Bib Latane and John Darley became interested in the idea of the bystander effect, the idea that witnesses do not take action to help someone when they're in a large group. Their interest stemmed from the murder of Kitty Genovese, a young woman who was stabbed to death in front of multiple witnesses, none of whom stepped in to save her life. At first, the psychologist experiments were relatively harmless. Soon, however, they became much more unethical. In one experiment, test subjects were put in a room with an actor who then pretended to have a seizure. The study found that when a group of suspects witnessed the seizure, few people stepped forward to help. Subjects were in the room alone with the actor, however, were willing to step up much more quickly. I think it's because you assume somebody else is going to kick in, don't you?
I mean, it's the conformity is a weakness and also a strength. We have civilization because people are willing to conform. Like, people are willing to do a lot of heinous shit, like taxes, and you're supposed to get like civilization out of it. One example of conformity is, have you ever seen the lift experiment? Like, when you go into a lift, you face towards the door, and it makes sense because and then so what if you get a bunch of actors and they're facing away from the door? Now, the subject, he goes in, and 9 times out of 10, if that, it might even be more than that, they will start facing the same way as everybody else because, I better conform. But you can see it like hesitating, like they'll sort of slowly shuffle and go.
I think people are like that with queues. I mean, you notice like people will join the back of a queue even if they don't know what's at the front of it. Like that. Have you ever noticed that? Like when you like the longer a queue is, the more people want to join it, don't they?
I've never been into a queue where I didn't know what the purpose I was queuing for was. I
just assume that some people obviously don't know what's at the front. They just join the queue, don't they? Because how can you just queue for nothing? That would make a good experiment. See how many people in a queue don't actually know what's at the other end just because it's long.
Well, wasn't it an episode of South Park or Simpsons where they're all in the queue, and then they get to the end of the queue, and it's like, that was it. You were in the line ride. Would you like a photograph of you in the line ride? Just like, what? Yeah, you were. I thought we were queuing up for something fun. Queuing is fun.
How about this one? Learned helplessness. Did you know this experiment?
Yeah, you can basically train rats to become apathetic. Something about
this one's dogs. So then, Seligman placed the dog in a box divided down the middle by a low barrier. He then administered a painful shock to that, so that the dog could escape by jumping over the barrier. Not surprisingly, every dog quickly learned if he jumped to the other side of the box, he could avoid the pain of a shock. But Seligman took his experiment a step further. He then harnessed a group of dogs together so that they were unable to escape when he shocked them. The next day, he placed those same dogs individually in the original box. And this time,
that's it. And those dogs were keeping the other dogs down.
Yeah. But he said, but this time, though, the dogs could have simply jumped because none of them did. So the next day they didn't. The ones that were harnessed together didn't jump the next day when they were on their own.
Yeah, because they've learnt to be helpless. There's something similar to that. Sorry for kind of jumping the gun on it. Have you heard of crabs in a bucket? Like
they pull each
crabs
other down, don't they?
Yeah, so they should be able to climb out of bucket, but people that go crab fishing, though, you don't have to do any of that stuff.
Yeah. Obviously, there's the shitty racism experiment with blue eyes and brown eyes. I think it was dark hair when I was at school. Oh, the Nazis would have murdered you because you got dark hair.
But Hitler had dark hair.
Yeah, exactly. It shows when he was done it.
You see, isn't it strange that, just being singled out for just one attribute? We're all the same. Wait, but you just acknowledged that Jews are different. Oh yeah, but you're not supposed to notice that.
Hobbit. What happens if you let psychopaths look after schizophrenics?
Hilarious consequences or tragedy?
Beginning in 1983, UCLA research psychologist Michael Gitlin and Keith H. Nuechterlein went to great and often unethical lengths to study out how and why people suffering from schizophrenia relapse. Specifically, the two doctors wanted to find out if it was possible to predict psychosis. So they recruited hundreds of schizophrenics to take part in the experiment. They took a large number of them off their medication. That's a great idea. Well, it's a great idea if you're a psychopath. Unfortunately, Gitlin and the other fella failed to plan a suitable timeline in which their test subjects could return to their medication. They also failed to protect those participating during the times in which they were studied. The weight of their failure culminated in one test subject, Antonio La Madrid, jumping from the roof of a nine-story building to his death. So that's what happens.
Not to be confused with Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. He would dive off the building, shooting two guns.
Would we be saying yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, whilst doing it?
No, that's Bruce Willis.
Okay. I feel sorry for Bruce Willis. Like, his pension plan was just, I'm going to appear for 5 minutes in all these films, which are pretty boring, but then they'll get, like, credence. And at first I was excited because it's like, oh, it's a film Bruce Willis, he's a good actor. And it's like, yeah, that was before he had the, it's not dementia, it's, what is it, that thing he's got?
I don't know, I didn't know he had a thing.
It's like aphasia, or it's something where
aphasia. Interdimensional lizard's already on it.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's not dementia, but it is dementia.
Yeah. So Princeton did a Good Samaritan experiment. None of these are particularly. Let's find some more. We got some more here, I think. See which ones we missed. Milgram, Little Albert, Stanford, Monkey Drug Trials, Bobo Doll. How about the third wave? Have you heard of this one? How was the Holocaust allowed to happen? It's one of history's burning questions. And when Ron Jones, a teacher at Palo Alto's Cubberley High School, was struggling to answer it for his sophomore. What's a sophomore, Hobbit? You any idea?
Sophomore is a type of student at high school. Just out of curiosity, what's a bread tube?
Or something, then, is it?
Yeah, I don't know Latin terms. What's a bread tube?
Just like year 9. What's
Punk Bastardo, tell me.
Go on then.
But Punk Bastardo, tell me what. Never like PPP since I saw his arsehole video. Tell me what a bread tube is.
Bread tube is. I was too kind to him. PPP was all right. He was, he's taken too many super chats. I think that's what he's done. Bread tube is it's like the lefties earning money, like the Vouchers and people like that. I think.
Oh, what are we earning money?
No, we're not. PPP is though.
Oh, I was going to say, when's the JML payments going to come in?
Oh, I've sent a very stern letter from, because they still owe us back from the thingy days, don't they?
Yeah.
Banter nationalism days.
Bastards.
What is it with Yanks and complicating very simple stuff? Sophomore, why can't he just say like year 10s or freshmen?
Yeah, you know what pissed me off about that? They start slagging us off for like how fancy and florid our language is.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, but then you do all this like bullshit Latin stuff, which you don't need to do.
So first day of his experiment, Jones created an authoritarian atmosphere in his class, positioning himself as a sort of World War II style supreme leader. Toothbrush moustache, hair flick. As the week progressed, Jones's one-man brand of fascism turned into a school-wide club. Students came up with their own insignia and adopted a Nazi-like salute. The evil in the air was palpable. They were taught to firmly obey Jones' commands and become anti-democratic to the core, even informing on one another. I mean, literally, isn't that literally what they do now? He's been a racist. Like it's like why is the left even pretending that informing on people is bad? Because they don't think it's bad, do they? Rabbit.
I'm struggling at the moment.
Right. So what else have we got here? Let's see if we can find any. Oh, you spoken about Tokyo subway attack?
Well, yeah, but you go into, because I only briefly covered it. Just like this is the stuff which students thinking they know better than us do. Well, this is the other thing. Like, can I just say, Greta Thunberg's very racist, and she wants. Now, I'm not going to use her terminology. She would want to, use the nigger word here, but she wants people in Africa to starve to death. And she said this numerous times.
Starve to death. She wants them to hurry up and get that fucking cobalt out of the ground for those fucking car batteries.
Lazy but also when you're getting all those minerals out of the ground, don't expect any food from the rest of the world, because we're not going to use oil fertilizers anymore, because that's evil. She wants them starved to death, and she knows best. Just like the students who worked for Japanese bloke.
I think Punk wants to see her see a suicide live on air, because he said, "Bring back JDLE, get Murph on, and lots of whiskey." I wouldn't get.
No, that's.
Have you read Murph's Twitter lately? I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, no. The fact is, Greta Thunberg wanting all the people in Africa to starve to death is the same sort of mentality that those students in Tokyo are saying that, well, look, we know best. We're going to release sarin nerve gas because maybe we'll get a few members of the Japanese parliament, the Diet, this way. And it's the same way with Ted Kaczynski going like, well, I'm slightly dissatisfied with society, so I'm just going to start sending bombs to random places.
Here's another fun experiment, Hobbit. Researchers at the University of Minnesota experimented on conscientious objectors during World War II to understand the effects of food deprivation. The Journal of Nutrition explains the men were semi-starved for 3 months and then re-fed for several more. Although the men claim the effects, a 25% loss of body weight plus irritability and depression, were worth it for their contributions to science. Some continued to binge eat and experienced crippling depression after the study concluded. One subject chopped off 3 of his fingers.
Great success.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get a favourable mention in Nature for this. Might be even nominated for the Nobel Prize.
How about this one then, Hobbit? You ever heard of British Army Captain Billy Clegg Hill? Was arrested for homosexuality in 1962 when it was still considered a mental illness and a crime in the United Kingdom based. and subjected to electroshock as a means to cure him. This aversion therapy was supposed to make him feel repulsed by his attraction to men. He died 3 days into the treatment, in part due to lack of blood flow to the brain. So would the electrocutions cause that then, Hobbit?
I don't really know what electrocution does to people. No, I assume like the electrocution it interferes with the heart's pacemaker, causes fibrillation.
Well, it doesn't actually stop your heart. It only restarts your heart, and that's why it interferes with the function of it. But it's weird that he died of blood loss due to lack of blood flow to the brain. But with electroshock, they don't do it. It doesn't travel through your heart, does it? Because they do it ear to ear, don't they? They put like headphones on you and pass the current through, don't they?
Well, the thing is, yeah, you can say electricity takes the path of least resistance, but it doesn't mean it won't cause snake for other things. I mean, you look at how lightning snakes about. It doesn't just go down one path, it will take all sorts of paths.
This is what I was going to say earlier. The Unabomber and Harvard's humiliation studies. So, would we have had a Unabomber without the infamous Harvard University humiliation studies? In 2000, an article in The Atlantic proposed that psychological research conducted beginning in 1959 on subjects including Theodore John Kaczynski may have led, at least indirectly, to 3 deaths, 23 injuries from the Unabomber's attacks from the late 1970s through to the 90s. Personally abusive insults on study participants' psyches were designed to break down their egos and may have contributed to what Kaczynski's defence lawyers maintained was his paranoid mind. These experiments were so creepy they sound like science fiction. Here's a good one, Hobbit. The tea room trade. These days, no researcher can run a study without informed consent. They must alert volunteers to any potential risks in a study. But the idea is relatively new. In Lord Humphrey's, that's L-A-U-D, Lord Humphrey's 1970 study on anonymous hookups in so-called tea rooms, Humphrey adopted a false identity to spy on some 100 men. He collected sexual data, as well as identities, addresses, and other personal information on his unwitting subjects at a time when homosexuality was still illegal in some states. The sensitive data that Humphreys covertly gathered wielded the potential to destroy the lives and families of subjects, explains an article in UC Santa Barbara's Sociology newsletter. Can
I also just say, like, here's another thing, right? If I was like a Malthusian cultist enthusiast, I'd be like, yeah, there are too many people in the world. I know. I'll work on the SARS virus from 2003, which, by the way, was created in a lab. And I'll work on it to be more infectious, and I'll release that and shits and giggles, really. Just see what happens. You know, just for a laugh, do that. Just release this virus with no cure into the world. Just something people have to contend with, like flu and the colds.
Well, that'd be a laugh.
Which really fucking sucks, by the way. And it's worse than the cold.
I found a bit of a PS on. Remember, talked about Loretta Bender's experiments earlier. She was administering electroshock therapy, and apparently she caused several severe seizures in more than 500 supposedly schizophrenic children, some of them under the age of 3. A number of her subjects detailed the horrors they experienced, the result: deteriorating mental state, memory loss, and self-harm. One 9-year-old subject attempted suicide twice.
Feel very I feel very happy to have heard
you gotta
this.
Love lab coats, haven't you, Hubbard?
I'm so full of joy hearing this, and I just think, you know, it's a great world, and I thank God every day for my health and my sanity, and I just love to be reminded of people that put beagles into a tent with sand fleas and watching them being bitten to death.
Yeah. 150 more. Here's another one. In the early 1930s, comparative psychologist Winthrop Kellogg and his wife welcomed a healthy baby boy they named Donald. The psychologist had grown interested in those stories of children who were raised feral, but he didn't send Donald to be raised by wolves. He did the opposite. Instead, he managed to get his hands on a similar age baby chimp named Gua and raised her alongside Donald. Gua initially did better than Donald in tests that included things like memory, scribbling, strength, dexterity, reflexes, problem solving, climbing, language comprehension, and more. But she eventually plateaued, and it became evident that no amount of equal treatment was going to make her behave more like a human. For example, she was never going to be able to speak English. But when the Kelloggs ended the experiment, they did so abruptly and without much explanation, which is contrary to meticulous records they otherwise took throughout the course of the study. While Gua wasn't showing any signs of picking up English, Donald had started to imitate the vocalizations of his sister from another species. So it's not hard to speculate why the Kellogg's called it quits. So then what they're saying is that his kid ended up becoming more like a chimp. His
At
child.
any point, is there an oversight committee going, and this will further human interests? How?
Yeah. Oh dear. These people. I don't think there's any more interesting ones than these ones. Obviously, and then you can go towards the many military experiments.
Yeah, alphabet cat. I've got some chelated zinc here. It's zinc gluconate because I think zinc citrate is apparently harsher on the body. And I've got lemon and honey. I haven't got ginger, but I've got chartreuse, and it's fucking revolting, but it's a good panacea.
Hobbit, you know a bit about biosphere too, don't you? This is more like idiots, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no. Here's the thing, right? So Biosphere 2 is this idea of what if we were to have like an off-world colony, and it has to be self-sufficient. So the idea is like all the plants you need for atmosphere and food and everything you need to sustain life in this self-contained biosphere, and it had some like proper science people from the science place in it. Like they were wearing white lab coats when designing it, and then when they went into it, they had their like little spaceman uniforms because. So you like about smart people, but they sure do like wearing their costumes. And yeah, unfortunately, none of the chemists or physicists or whatever you want to call them realise that when concrete sets, it draws oxygen from the atmosphere. So in theory, Biosphere 2 would have worked. It's just that as the concrete was still setting, it was pulling up oxygen from the atmosphere, and the occupants of Biosphere 2 were suffering hypoxia, and the experiment had to be cancelled because otherwise they were going to suffocate.
See if the first mission challenges. Let's see if it's in the challenges. Among the problems and miscalculations encountered in the first mission were unanticipated condensation making the desert too wet, population explosions of greenhouse ants and cockroaches, because that was part of it, weren't it? The cockroach infestation, weren't it? Morning glories.
I forgot about that.
Morning glories overgrowing the rainforest area, blocking out other plants and less sunlight. 40 to 50% of outside light entering the facility than originally anticipated. They intervened to control invasive plants when needed to preserve biodiversity, functioning as keystone predators. In addition, construction itself was a challenge. For example, it was difficult to manipulate the bodies of water to have waves and tidal changes. So they really tried. They tried to do everything. Then Hobbit.
Yeah, it's just it was, and that's the thing. It's like by doing it, I think it was a noble endeavor. I really do, because by doing this thing, you get to realize just how clever nature is. And you can even be an atheist and say, yeah, nature's clever, but after a while you have to go, well, what's the intelligence that's guiding this? Like, how does a bee orchid look like a bee? It's got no eyes. How does it know what a bee looks like?
How about this quote from someone called H.T. Odom? Noted, the management process during the 1992 to 1993 using data-developed theory, test it with simulation and apply corrective actions was in the best scientific tradition, yet some journalists crucified the management in the public press, treating the project as if it was an Olympic contest to see how much could be done without opening the doors. Well, surely that was the point, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they're saying, well, look, if this colony was on Mars, we couldn't just say, oh, okay, guys, you're going to have to come back now. It really was the idea of, like, you got an off-world colony, you're not just going to be able to say, okay, experiment's over. If there's something wrong with your... basically, if there's something wrong with your life support, or if you've got, like, potato blight, you've got a problem. And if you can't fix it, then oh well. It was nice knowing you guys.
The oxygen inside the facility, which began at 20.9%, fell at a steady pace, and after 16 months was down to 14.5%. This is equivalent to the oxygen availability at an elevation of 4,080 metres. That's 13,390 feet. Since some biospherians were starting to have symptoms like sleep apnea and fatigue, Walford and the medical team decided to boost oxygen with injections in January and August 1993. The oxygen decline and minimal response of the crew indicated that changes in air pressure are what trigger human adaptation responses.
Just I know you're just reading from the article, but how do you boost oxygen with an injection? How does that...
You put air in people's blood, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. Cool. We'll do that. Yeah.
So have they tried to treat them for anemia or something like that? Then is that what they've tried to do? I assume with injections.
All I can think is if they're saying there's not enough oxygen, then right. So maybe the problem is the red blood cells. So you're giving them B12 injections, so that I don't know.
So anyway, eventually they put a oxygen scrubber in. But I did watch something about all this kind of stuff, and apparently there's certain types of grasses, aren't they, that are really good, that pump out loads of oxygen, don't they? They're really efficient with the CO2 to they're like really good oxygen scrubbers, aren't they?
That's the other problem as well with the plants is they do this thing that at night they absorb oxygen. So you see on our planet it doesn't matter because we got like massive buffers in the atmosphere, and also when it's nighttime here it's daylight somewhere else. So there's always some part of the world producing oxygen.
They sold the place for 50 million in 2005, Hobbit.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I thought it was just like, torn down once they were done with their experiment.
Oh, did you know Biodome is a comedy film based on that? Oh, fucking hell, it's got Pauly Shore in it.
Yeah, Alphabet Cat's right. We do need more carbon dioxide, not less.
Yeah.
Because we are in like the lowest period of carbon dioxide in our planet's existence, and if we had more carbon dioxide, there would be less drought, And the reason being is transpiration. The more carbon dioxide there is, the less plants transpirate. Therefore, you can irrigate plants with less water. This is why all commercial greenhouse growers will have naked flames going in the place. It does two benefits. One, it heats things up, and two, it provides additional CO2. So you get bigger yields and you need less water.
Oh dear. What else we got, Biosphere? I found a list of the 30 most disturbing human experiments. Oh, this is human experiments in general.
Okay, well, we got half an hour left of this stuff, and
we'll probably do. We'll try and do some. The stomach. You didn't want to do the stomach one, did you? Project Artichoke.
Okay. No, I do not want to do stuff about fistulas. Sorry, I just noticed there's been comments on my video saying, "That's weird. I've just seen your hand in the video and noticed you're white. I always imagined you to be black due to the sound of your voice, unless you're wearing shrink fit fake white
bubble phone. It's because you've got a bubble phone.
Or maybe you've been through some kind of Michael Jackson type chameleon skin treatment thing by sleeping in a massive glass test tube. Anyway, you sound like Deshaun or Jabajaju or Jamal, not a John, Stephen or Dave.
Let's talk. Do you want to talk about the good old CIA again, Hobbit? Project Artichoke. In the 1950s, the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence ran a series of mind control projects in an attempt to answer the question, can we get control of an individual to the point where he'll do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature?
We deliberately trained him to do evil things because we thought it'd be funny.
Yeah. One of these programs, Project Artichoke, studied hypnosis, forced morphine addiction.
Just a brief aside. Now, you might say, who would do such heinous shit? And then you look at the accusations
it sounds like you want the it almost sounds like you want the commies to win, Hobbit. That's what it sounds like. Are you some sort of pinko commie, Hobbit?
It's almost as if the families which do satanic child abuse are also the same ones which would have a centralized intelligence agency of some sort and ostensibly say it's because to fight this external threat.
Oh, Alphabet Cat is apparently Project Artichoke is what was used on Sirhan, the guy who killed Robert Kennedy's killer. The guy who killed Robert Kennedy. So, Project Artichoke, they did fun stuff like hypnosis, forced morphine addiction, drug withdrawal, and the use of chemicals to incite amnesia in underwitting human subjects. That sounds a bit like RoboCop 2, doesn't it? You know, when she says you got to do this to get the nuke.
Oh yeah, that was it. It was just like creating a drug addict and then just getting them to do whatever you want so that they can get their fix.
This is a lovely one. In the 1950s, Willowbrook State School. I'm pretty sure Willowbrook is one of those ones that ghost hunters go to regularly. Anyway, a New York state-run institution for mentally handicapped children began experiencing outbreaks of hepatitis. Due to unsanitary conditions, it was virtually inevitable that these children would contract hepatitis. Dr. Saul Krugman, now there's a guy you can trust, was sent to investigate the outbreak, proposed an experiment that would assist in developing a vaccine. However, the experiment required deliberately infecting the children with the disease.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? You got something against scientific. You're not one of these. You're not one of these anti-vaxxer, tinfoil nutters, are you? Look, trust the science. The science is settled. Fact checkers have independently verified that this is the way to save grandma.
What else we got? MK Ultra, our friends at the CIA again. So MK Ultra is LSD, mind-altering drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, verbal and sexual abuse, and various forms of torture.
You know what LSD was about? Like, Albert Hofmann is a Swiss chemist, right? And he was working on ergotamine, which is this migraine treatment. And he says, I found this way to further refine ergotamine, and what I made was the citric acid. Yes, it's literally from the rye fungus that caused St. Elmo's fire and horrible stuff. And so he further refined it, and he made something that was so potent that because he touched it, just came in skin contact, he got like a massive dose of it, and he was the first person to trip in like the 1920s.
Like the despair squid from Red Dwarf.
Yeah, that was it, and it's so potent that micrograms of it is enough to cause hallucination.
So here we go. So in the 1960s, research of the University of California. Remember, these people are professionals. They have a lab coat and a clipboard. Began an experiment to study changes in blood pressure and blood flow. So how would you study changes in blood pressure and blood flow, Hobbit?
So I'd measured the blood test before, and then I'd put them into a steam oven where I almost steamed them to death, and then I measured the blood test afterwards.
Oh, well, no kind of scientist, Hobbit. What you really do is you get 100.
Oh, sorry.
What you really do is you get 113 newborns ranging in age from 1 hour to 3 days old as test subjects. In one experiment, a catheter was inserted through the umbilical arteries into the aorta. The newborn's feet were immersed in ice water for the purpose of testing aortic pressure. In another experiment, up to 50 newborns were individually strapped onto a circumcision board, then tilted so the blood rushed to their head and their blood pressure could be monitored.
So for those of our audience which are unfamiliar, a circumcision board is a medieval torture device used by Americans where they strap down the infant babies, which, let's not use gendered terminology here, be penised, so that then the active male genital, sorry, that's a gendered term, so that the foreskin of the penis can be removed without anaesthetic, and they can have a giggle whilst the baby is screaming in pain.
How about this one then? Perhaps one benefit of being an inmate at California's San Quentin prison is the easy access to acclaimed Bay Area doctors. But if that's the case, then a downside is that these doctors also have easy access to inmates. From 1913 to 1951, Dr. Leo Stanley, who had a clipboard and white coat, chief surgeon at San Quentin, used prisoners as test subjects in a variety of bizarre medical experiments. Stanley's experiments include sterilisation and potential treatments for the Spanish flu. In one particularly disturbing experiment, Stanley performed testicle transplants on living prisoners using testicles from executed prisoners, in some cases goats and boars. I mean, that's got nothing to do with science. That's got everything to do with having some issues, isn't it?
Right, I'm going to put my microphone like 2 foot away from me so it's the same distance as you have it, because Sidiosolus says... Hemi would be talking, then you come in with all the grace and time of a brick through a window. It's like, you know, I like when I hear Hemi in this thing.
Do I need to get clear? I
turn
quite relaxed.
Hemi's voice down in the thing because it's really loud to me.
Yeah,
and I have the microphone close to me, because when I'm streaming by myself, I do it this way, because then, like, look, if I do it here, I assume you can still hear me, but it's just not as good quality, right?
Hobbit, you're in prison. You're in prison in Washington and Oregon between the years of 1963 and 1973. Someone goes to you, Hobbit, do you want some money and maybe and parole as well? What do you do?
Run that through.
So you're in prison between 1963 and 1973. They go, "Hey, Hobbit, you're a good lad. Do you want some do you want some money and parole?"
Well, yes, please.
Okay. Well, right. That's fine. Well, there you go. Just sign this. Right, so what we're going to do actually, we're not going to tell you what we're going to do to you now, but what we are going to do to you now is we're going to zap you with 400 rads of radiation in 10-minute intervals in the testicles. However, much later So, however, much later, the inmates learned the experiments were far more dangerous than had been told. In 2000, former participants settled a 2.4 million class action settlement from the university.
Oh, that's really nice. That's good.
We got a couple of syphilis experiments. Obviously, I don't need to go into that, do I? Oh God! Did you know the Tuskegee ones, that there are even kids born with congenital syphilis?
Yeah. So those not aware, Ye West will probably have mentioned this amongst other. Basically, wouldn't it be funny if we said to blacks, "We're going to offer you a vitamin program"? Oh, psych! Actually, we're injecting you with syphilis.
Yeah. How about, Hobbit? How about if they don't even ask you and they don't even tell you, and they just throw a load of mosquitoes out there with yellow fever and dengue fever? How about that for an experiment?
Consequences.
But I've got a clipboard, so it's fine. Not surprisingly, hundreds of researchers contracted illnesses including fever and respiratory problems, stillbirths, encephalitis, and typhoid.
Oh no, that's really terrible. Who could have the poor researchers?
Yeah.
But don't you mean like their white lab coats didn't protect them from this stuff?
Yeah.
I feel so sad for them.
Well, what about the Soviets? They got people out of the gulags, and they were trying to find a tasteless, odorless chemical that could not be detected. A tasteless, odorless chemical poison that could not be detected post-mortem.
Easy for you to say.
In North Korea, 50 healthy women prisoners were given poisoned cabbage leaves. All were dead within 20 minutes. Others described experiments include the practice of surgery on prisoners without anaesthesia, starvation, beating prisoners over the head before using zombie-like victims for target practice, and chambers for which whole families are murdered with suffocation gas. It said each month a black van known as the Crow collects 40 to 50 people from a camp and takes them to an unknown location for experiments. And then obviously you got the Nazis. Apparently the Nazis attempted to genetically manipulate twins, bone, muscle and nerve transplantation, exposure to diseases and chemical gases, sterilisation and anything else they could think up. Unit 731, which is the Japs. They had Chinese and Russian test subjects. So experiments which included removal of organs from a live body, amputations for the study of blood loss, germ warfare attacks and weapons testing. Some prisoners even had their stomachs surgically removed and their esophagus reattached to the intestines.
Lovely.
Hobbit, you're a housewife. You're pregnant in World War II. Somebody goes, "Here, do you want a vitamin drink?" What do?
Oh, well, yes, but I sure hope I'm not drinking polonium or something else radioactive.
Was it radioactive iron? Radioactive iron. Seven of the babies later died from cancers and leukemia. Women themselves experienced rashes, bruises, anemia, loss of hair, hairs and teeth, and cancer. How about if in the 1943, if you're a US Navy soldier, Hobbit? We're going to go, do you want to participate in an experiment that helps shorten the war? Why? I sure do. Then what happens? You get poisoned with mustard gas. So you go, right, that's it. I'm not putting up with this. I don't need to. And they go, shut the fuck up, or we're gonna have you over with the Espionage Act, you filthy commie. So there we go. There we go. I think we've had enough depression for tonight. We're going to do some unexplained mysteries.
Just remember, folks, that not everybody's a student, and
never trust a man with a lab coat.
There are some people that understand that the reason the world is the way it is and that the reason to be grateful for it is because of God, and that they should use their gifts to better man. Unfortunately, some people they're working for the devil, and so they think to better man means to divorce them from God and their soul and turn them into a biological android, devoid of a soul, devoid of any connection with God, and therefore just a lump of flesh to be used and abused.
I think it's the problem with our society where our whole society encourages psychopaths to get to the top, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a number of things wrong with it, but I think really a lot of it can be explained as we're a godless nation. We're a godless people.
The Avril Lavigne conspiracy's coming back. That she died, isn't there?
Oh, I don't know anything about this.
Remember Avril Lavigne?
Yeah.
Complicated, wasn't it? Skater boy, etc., etc. Yeah, apparently she died, and
Let's say the same.
how about this? It was
that
back
Paul
in
McCartney died.
It was back in 2005. The theory first surfaced with which alleged Lavigne had taken her own life after the trauma of her grandfather's death and had been replaced by a double named Melissa Vandella. The theory goes that Vandella was originally hired to protect the reclusive Lavigne from intrusive media, and that following Lavigne's apparent death, the record company used Vandella as Lavigne's substitute in support. To be fair, if you're a record company, you wouldn't, would you? Because the sales would be much better if she were dead. So it doesn't make sense that way, does it?
I don't know, but I mean, there was that thing that's saying Paul McCartney died, and then they replaced him, and that's why they're having the lookalike competition to find somebody that looked like Paul McCartney.
Did you know that Taylor Swift is a clone of a former satanic priestess named Zena LaVey?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm really tired. My sleeping's been all fucked with this thing.
Are we done then? I bet.
It's just. Let's just have a look at unexplained histories. We can.
That's what I'm
make
doing.
This
That's what I've been reading.
Yeah.
From.
Oh shit.
Levine from.
Yeah.
What else we got? Oh, NASA are doing a UFO study. Oh, that'll be good then, won't it?
Well, that's going to tie into Project Bluebeam, isn't it?
What's Bluebeam?
Have we done any? Oh, Project Bluebeam. They're going to use holograms in the skies to convince people it's an alien UFO landing, and we've got to have world government to deal with it, because that's the only way we can deal with the aliens. Basically got
Watchmen, because that's basically what Watchmen's about, isn't it?
Well, Project Bluebeam's what they're calling it.
Man falls ill after eating live crab to punish it for pinching his daughter.
Yeah, the reason you're supposed to boil crabs alive is because they're filthy beasts, and you know what? I'm not saying kosher is right, but at the same time I'm saying kosher is right. Fuck crabs.
Yeah.
Grandmother has Ouija boards handed out to attendees at a funeral. I want to say that's a feel-good, ha-ha funny one, but Ouija boards are tools of the devil. You will summon a demon with them. Don't use it.
This one might be a funny ha-ha. When woman is swallowed whole by a huge python in the Indonesian jungle. Oh, the snake ultimately swallowed her whole, suffocating her to death inside its body. Oh, God.
I once knew a woman that swallowed a horse. She's dead, of course. You know the nursery rhyme. I knew a woman that swallowed a fly.
She swallowed a fly first, didn't she?
Yeah, and then she swallowed a spider to get the fly. She swallowed a sparrow to get the spider. She swallowed a cat to get the sparrow, and then swallowed a dog to chase the cat. And then it's just like
Well, how about
I
this
forget.
one?
Oh,
A group are suing Biden and the National Archives over JFK assassination files.
I wonder how that's going to turn out.
I think it was the mob, personally.
I
think it makes
think
the
it
most
was.
sense.
I think it was the Mossad.
House of the Dragon was inspired by a real medieval dynasty. No, it wasn't, because...
Well, are they saying that there were dynasties in Europe and there's dynasties in this fictitious program? Therefore, see, there's historical precedent.
Viserys and Henry I share the same plight. Building support. I can't be bothered to read it because I really don't care about.
What is House of the Dragon?
Fucking hell!
Oh,
They've
it's
had
a Game of
three-ton sunfish hobbit.
What's a sunfish?
Oh, it's a big ugly thing. Looks a bit like a blobfish.
Oh, okay.
It's 12 foot high and 11 foot in length. Fucking hell.
Cool.
Oh, it's a weird looking thing. Oh, it's horrible. Looks like a dead fat man on the floor.
Albeit any size, remember?
New animism seeks personhood rights for non-human beings. Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm not even getting into that one. I was actually pay. Did we do this last week? Close up of an ant's face.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah. What else?
Why is this painting found to be hanging upside down for 75 years? Oh, yeah, this is ridiculous, right? It's one of those abstract Monet paintings.
Yeah.
Piet Mondrian.
I didn't know Monet did abstract. I thought he did like watercolours.
No, I'm getting him confused with Dutch. By the way, the Dutch scum artist Piet Mondrian. Look, when I was 6 years old on MS Paint, I was doing Mondrian paints because you can. No, I wasn't 6 years old. Hang on. 6 years old would have been. I'm not saying what date it was. Well, look, I can do a Piet Mondrian painting myself when I was 12, and I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. I'm not an artist. And, like, people saying, oh, it's priceless. Fuck you. It literally is just painting straight bloody lines. That's not bloody art. That's just... Look, if someone said, oh, it's a wallpaper pattern, I'd be like, oh, you know what? That's quite a nice-looking wallpaper pattern. Yeah, let's put it up. I'll probably get bored with it after 5 years and think it looked terribly dated, but people are saying this is priceless. This is, again, I think brings back to when I was summarising at the start of this show. Students are fucking assholes and they're dickheads, and they like to pretend that a Piet Mondrian is a priceless work of art, which is up there with Caravaggio or Leonardo da Vinci's artworks. Absolutely not. And yeah, there are good English artists like Lawrence Alma Tadema, who I do like his artwork, but, you know, Caravaggio's master. Fuck this guy. This is bullshit. Oh, I'm getting a call from someone at 9 o'clock.
We done then, mate.
Yeah, we're done.
Right, we're all done. Night all. Stay spooky.